If you have never been to an ordination liturgy where a man is being ordained a priest, you are probably not familiar with what I call the part of the liturgy called the ritual of the awkward hug. There's a point in the liturgy where after a bishop has laid hands upon a man to ordain him, that then all the other bishops or all the priests that are there come forward and they give a hug to the newly ordained as kind of a ritual of a kind of a welcome to the fraternity of priesthood kind of thing. It's a blast to watch it happen because you get these weird little hugs. You get I call it the European hug, which is not really a hug at all, right? And then you get, I love the A-frame hug, so your bodies don't touch, right? Just like this. Then, of course, that's the awkward, what side do you go to hug? And my favorite is when one of my brother priests will come up and they just give him a big old bear hug right there. And it amazes me how Catholic liturgy can sometimes force our boundaries and get away with it. I mean, because we all have them, right? We all have those boundaries, what we're comfortable with. And my boundaries might be not the same as your boundaries. We have people who give you hugs when you really don't want a hug, right? Or people who stand way too close to you when they're talking. Or the TMI people, the people who tell you way too much. You don't need to know all of that, right? It can make us a little bit uncomfortable, sometimes a lot uncomfortable when those boundaries are crossed. Because there are good and appropriate boundaries that keep us safe, they keep us protected, they give us a sense of orderliness to our lives, they keep our bodies chaste. But then there are other boundaries that get set up. Boundaries sometimes that get established simply out of self-righteousness or to keep others locked into shame. Boundaries that are implied and others that are sometimes even written into law of our state or our church. Those are the boundaries we need to take a look at, because in today's gospel, as often happens, boundaries are also broken, lots of them. The synagogue official approaches Jesus. Jesus is this itinerant and highly suspect preacher. A lot of eyebrows would have been raised among the proper Jews that he would be approaching this guy or not. A boundary was crossed. The woman, deemed unclean because of her ailment, reaches out and touches Jesus, something completely forbidden by their law, scandalous even. Jesus himself, who touches the dead girl, a touch that would have made him unclean in the Jewish law. And yet each time one of those boundaries were crossed, every time the taboo was broken, every time the law was set aside, what happened? Life was given. Given in the form of hope to this desperate father who was afraid of losing his daughter. Given in the form of healing to a woman who had been kept outside for an ailment that she neither chose nor she could be cured. Given in the form of a breath restored to a 12-year-old girl who had been robbed of life at such a young age. There are good boundaries in our society, in our day and age, boundaries that we need to respect, and they're necessary, held in love by love and respect and reverence of one another. But there are also those other boundaries that we need to take a look at sometimes. Boundaries that are not created out of safety, but rather that just hurt. They just hurt others. Boundaries that prevent the love of God from flowing well between us as brothers and our sisters. Boundaries that keep the reverence and respect of every life that should be honored as an imprint of God. Boundaries that prevent that equality of the riches and the poverty. Jesus showed us a way to break some of those boundaries. We pray for that mind of Jesus. We pray for that heart of Jesus, for the grace that we too might know the difference. Because I bet Jesus gave great hugs.